Hello. I don't know how this works. Hopefully, hey, I can see people who are watching me. Cool, cool, cool. All right, let me know if you can like hear me, see me, all the things. Because I've never done this before. I'm going to wait for some other folks to show up. Well, we'll see if other folks show up. Because this is a whole new thing here. I think I can see people who are watching me. Is that what this means? You can hear me and you love my haircut. Thank you. I got bored and gave myself bangs today. Awesome. All right, let's see. Can I bring this a little closer? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, friends. Okay. I hope this YouTube thing is better and works well. Because I think, like, at least for me, like what I can see, the quality is much better than Twitter. So, hopefully y'all like it. All right. Yay. Okay, it says super clear. You can hear me. That's exciting. If this keeps going and we like YouTube, I might get myself a microphone so that there's less echo because I know there's a lot of echo in this room. Quality is definitely much better. Awesome. Okay. So, aw, Becky, thanks. Okay, I think that this little thing over here, I'm saying over here, like you can see where I'm pointing, it says that there's like 8 people watching. I think that's what that means. I could be wrong, but that's okay. Hi guys. Yeah, if you see me touching my head a lot, it's because I'm trying to train my bangs. They're new. All right. So I guess we can get started. It's going to be the same old thing, but since this is the first one on YouTube, we're going to pretend like it's brand new. So I'm just going to tell you all the things you need to know, which I kind of do anyway, but I lost my palette. Hold on. Okay, I got my palette back. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need, if you want to do this painting exactly or similarly to how I've done it, you're going to need black paint and you're going to need white paint. Very, very basic. If you want to choose your own colors, you absolutely can do that. I suggest a dark and a light. So you may still need white. You'll probably still need white to mix into whatever your lighter shade is. But any 2 contrasting colors would look awesome with this. You're going to need a big brush. You know, my big Bob. I call him Bob. He's my background guy. I usually don't like specify which kinds of brushes you really need, but I do think a flatter, if you have the option of a flatter brush, would make it easier to do this like sharp cut line down the middle axis. I guess it's down the axis. So if you have a sharp, like flat brush, that would be ideal. And you're going to need, let's see, probably like this guy, like a skinny rounder. He's really small for this big canvas, so I might use a bigger guy like this since my canvas is so big, but a round, skinny kind of brush is going to really work to do those like light, feathery lines of the feather. I mean, that's just what they are. You're going to need something to rinse your brushes in. I have changed my water finally. You wouldn't really be able to tell, but I have changed it. And you're going to need something to put your paint on and something to dry your brushes on. I think that's it. Now, things that you can use that I have chosen not to, because I try to keep the supplies like as basic as possible for these things because I don't want you to have to go shopping. But I will say, and I'm not bragging, but I'm kind of bragging. It's a humble brag. I didn't use a straight edge for this line. I just eyeballed it. However, that I don't think I'm going to do nearly as good of a job on this one when I'm like painting backwards and stuff. So if you if you have a ruler, if you want to get some sort of straight edge, preferably something you don't mind getting paint on. So if you have like an old magazine, you can use the edge of a magazine, a straight edge, an old book that you maybe don't care about. I don't want to say that about books, but anything straight that will go across your canvas, you can use for that line. Let's see, square canvas or A4. I think you could do either a rectangle or a square. It might change like the proportion of your feather to make sure that you leave room for these little birdie guys if you want them, which I almost didn't leave enough room for. So yeah, you could use either kind of canvas. So straight edge. If you don't have a straight edge and you really, really want a nice, crisp, clean, straight line, and you have like masking tape or electrician's tape, you can tape it. But that's going to make you need to make sure that the other paint is completely dry first. So that's up to you. But we're going to get started. And I'm actually going to start with black, which is weird, but I'll tell you why. Because to get that clean line, we're actually going to have to go over it a couple times, as you probably would even if it wasn't a perfectly clean line. So I'm going to start with the black. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely eyeball it. I'm not going to worry about it having a perfectly straight edge right now because we still have to go back in and paint that very, very pale gray color. So I don't care. Like, this is not going to be a perfectly clean line. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take it from one corner to the other. Just eyeball. And the faster you do it, the easier it is, because if you're like really stressing over it, it's never going to be straight. And then I'm just going to paint. And now again, if you're using different colors, if you're not using black and white, this would be your darker shade, whatever your darker color is. And then I'm just going to paint everything below that line black. So now also while we're doing this, if you have not already, I'm sounding like a horrible YouTuber, but if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can totally do that. I've been told by my fabulous YouTuber friends that if I get 100 subscribers, then I can have my own like URL, like it'll say youtube.com/artingbyilly. Which would be fun. So tell your friends to subscribe too, even if they don't care about art class. And I'm just going to do a nice thin layer because I do want this to dry fairly quickly. So make sure you're spreading the love around. If you're getting that like sound, that means that you're not using enough paint. But if you have like visibly raised areas of paint, move it around. It's never going to dry. Now, I can also tell you that just because I'm painting a feather doesn't mean you have to paint a feather. If you just like this idea of like the two tones, splitting it in half, like kind of yin yang thing, you can put any object that you feel confident that you can paint half of and then continue it on another color story. Make it your own, be creative. That's what we're here for. I am going to try, I told you guys last week if you were watching, I'm trying to get the videos that we've done on Twitter, I'm trying to upload them to YouTube. I found a backwards way of doing that, and I tried backwards, but it made my video go upside down when I uploaded it to YouTube, so I don't know why it did that. So I'm working on it. And by working on, I mean I've completely stopped trying, but we'll resume trying shortly. Okay. So once you've gotten your bottom half painted in your dark shade, you can wash your brush because we're going for like a really light gray. So it's just enough black paint in your white paint to make it gray instead of white, because it's kind of silly to paint white on a white canvas. So I just like to add a little bit of gray. Plus, you're gonna need a little bit of gray to help with coverage, to help get that line nice and clean. It just started pouring outside, so if you could hear that, I'm sorry. Got my white paint. And I'm cleaning my brush because I don't want, there was a lot of black on there. I don't want all of that black on, like, to mix in to make my gray. So I'm washing my brush. Remember, you kind of have to beat them up on the bottom to get all that paint out. And then you can dry them off on your towel. I'm just gonna grab a little bit of black, and I'm gonna mix like a significant amount because we're gonna be needing a significant amount, and you're gonna use it for your feather and all of that. So just a very pale gray. Now, I've mentioned before on my canvases that I paint on for these classes, I've gessoed on them. So they are already a little bit gray. So this might actually look whiter than my canvas, but for most of you, if you're painting on a canvas or a piece of paper that's already white, you want it to just be just barely gray. So what I'm gonna do, yeah, see, it's lighter. I'm going to get like real close, but I'm not gonna get on top of that line yet. I'm not going to stress about making that line nice and clean yet. So I'm gonna get pretty close. Now, the line itself does not have to be super clean. I promise it doesn't have to be. The thing that I think is more important than the line being clean is for it to actually go corner to corner and cut it in half. If it goes from like not so much the corner to not so much the corner, I mean, it's okay, it's just a different look. But having it be even is pretty much what we're going for. Let's see, if you're using non-white for the other half, should we change our second color? I don't, oh, you mean like as far as mixing black into the white? I'm confused by your question, Amy. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, so if you're using a dark, for example, if you're using dark blue and you wanted a light green, I would mix white into your green. Does that answer your question? So no, don't mix black in if you're not using white. Doing black and yellow. Okay, yes, mix white into your yellow. Don't mix black into your yellow. That's a really good question. I didn't even think to bring that up. Thank you. Now, you can, I mean, if you're picking two different shades and you want to play around with mixing, you know, your darker color into your lighter color, you can, but it may not give you what you're looking for as far as contrast goes. So the light to dark aspect of it. And personally, I have, so in this one, you can see maybe that there's a little bit of streakiness in that gray. So it doesn't have to be perfectly solid, but I do want it to be pretty flat, pretty like one tone, because I want I just want the feather and the birds to stand out. But that's also personal preference, and I just remixed a gray that is much darker than what I've been using. So I'll have a little bit of streakiness. It's fine. If you do that, it's really not a big deal. Like if you run out of a color and have to mix it again and it doesn't match, just kind of pull it through in other areas where you have the first color and it'll look entirely purposeful. Don't forget, if you're painting on a canvas that is wrapped like mine, to paint the outside edges. I sometimes forget to mention that, but it just makes it look nice and finished when you go to hang it up if the outer edges are painted. My dog just scared the crap out of me. All right, and because there is a little bit of streakiness and a little bit of variation in the color, once I'm done getting all this covered here, just getting all of my canvas texture covered, I am going to go in with a little bit more on my brush, and I'm just going to go in one direction. So I'm just going to make sure that the streaks all kind of follow the same brush stroke. I want it to all be on this diagonal. I wasn't super concerned with that with the black because when it dries, it'll dry flat and you won't be able to see the brush strokes as much. I can't wait to see your blue and green feather, Becky. Thank you. Now, I'm going to take more of the same light gray or whatever your lighter color is, and now I'm going to start to work on this line because I do want it to be kind of clean. I will say your instinct may be to not have a lot of paint because when you have more paint, it can get gloppy and messier, but you need a significant amount of paint to get that clean line. And what I want to do is if you have a flat brush like this, you're going to dip into the paint on one side like this, and then flip it over and dip into it on the other side. And that's going to keep your bristles nice and together. Now, usually when I want a straight line, a straight-ish line, I tell you to do it all in one piece, because if you try to do it in super small sections, you'll get really like that sketchy vibe and it won't be really clean. However, for this, especially if you're working on a big canvas, that's the big thing. If it's really big, you're gonna probably need to do it in at least 2 sections. If it's on a smaller one, absolutely try to just go for it in one swoop. Don't hold your breath. Depriving your brain of oxygen doesn't make you paint better or straighter or any of that. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to go over my black. Now, as I do this, I might not like it. I might say, ooh, that's not even, or ooh, I went a little too far. That's okay. We're going to go back over it with black. I told you there was a couple of layers here. So we're just going to do our best to fill in this little gap that we might have left. And try to get it nice and clean. If you think I got that like that on the first shot, you are mistaken. Now, you might end up with a like grayer line. Grayer, is that a word? A more gray color in the middle. If your black is still super wet, it's okay. So we're gonna clean it up. Okay, that's not too bad. Let's see, I think I need to come in a little bit here. Okay, that's pretty good, considering I'm painting backwards. And then I'm gonna wash my brush off. Now, I don't want to go too crazy with the black here because I still need this to be dry. I need this to dry because I need to paint over it for my feather. So I'm just gonna, oops, I forgot to dry my brush. Wash your brush and dry your brush, friends, or else you'll be painting with watercolor. All right, so I'm just gonna grab a little bit of black on my brush, not too much, just a little bit. I'm gonna go back in, and this is where I'm really gonna start to clean up this line. So it's just a small amount at a time. Any little places that you feel like you may have done a little whoopsie, or maybe it curved a little, or your brush splayed out and you got a little extra weirdness happening. If you're experiencing a lot of mixing, like all your white is mixing with your black and it's getting really into that middle and it's more of a blend instead of a straight clean line, definitely take a break and let your canvas dry, or grab your hair dryer and dry your canvas. It's okay for a little bit of blending to happen, like to get a little bit of that middle gray, but we don't want too much of it. Right here, it's bothering me. So I'm gonna clean my brush off. And because everything else is cool with me, but this time the white looks like it's being pushed that way, if that makes sense, I'm gonna go back in with some white and go a little bit here. Yeah, I think that did it. And now if you look real close at this is not perfect. Like, you see, there is that kind of darker gray. It's definitely not a super clean line, but you're not meant to look at art from like 3 inches away. So it's fine. All right, so now Bob, my big background bush, he can just chill in the water for the rest of class. We're gonna be doing our Spencer brush. So I call Spencer any of these, you know, these tall, skinny, round brushes. They're Spencer for me. So let's see, which one do I want? Oh, this one, this middle guy might be good. I'm gonna use the middle Spencer. So I'm going to wash him off. Just make sure he's nice and clean, and I'm gonna dry him off. And I'm gonna start my feather in this black area. Now my black is not perfectly dry. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfectly dry because we've been working with that kind of gray situation. So because of that, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take that gray mixture. I'm just going to use white. So if you're using other colors besides black and white, you may want to actually dry it depending on how those two colors mix together, because you might get an entirely different color instead of just different tones. So we are going to go in on here with a color that looks like this color. So if you are, for example, using blue and light yellow, when you do that, if this is wet, you're going to get green, which is fine, but it's not really what we're going for with this look. So if that's the case, wash your brush, but dry your canvas. You can also, if you're feeling like really anxious about drawing this feather, you shouldn't be, don't worry about it. But if you are, you can grab some chalk and kind of just on the black, just do a little line so that you know where you want to go. I'm not going to bother with chalk. I'm just going to do it with this guy. So I've got white paint on my Spencer brush, and I'm just going to take a look here and kind of decide where I want my feather to be. Now, what I like to do is I like to start up here, even though I'm not going to touch my brush to the canvas, just so that I can decide, okay, maybe if the tip of my feather is going to be here to give myself room for these birds, I kind of want it to go like this. So I'm gonna say, that's it. So I didn't touch my brush to my canvas for all that. I just wanted like a kind of trajectory in my head so that I can go here, and decided this is where my feather was going to land on the black part. Now, fun part of the feather is the little like quill tip. So I'm gonna bring this out here. I'm gonna bend it down. And then over here, I'm gonna make it a little bit thicker, like that. Kind of like when we did our trees, where it kind of comes out like a Y. And you can just connect them with a little bit of a frowny face. My black is very wet right there. So that was a poor choice, but that's okay. How are we doing? Anybody have any questions, comments? I'm mostly just killing time now to let mine dry because I didn't realize my black was that wet. I love painting feathers. If any of you guys have like been around when I was selling artwork at the conventions, I would paint feathers all the time. Feathers, wings. I like them a lot. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to keep in mind as we're about to really start our feather. Usually, I say I like nice clean brush strokes. I don't want to see that canvas texture. Here, it doesn't really matter so much. So you can load your brush up with paint and have these nice, like beautiful, clean, wispy lines. But also if you wisp and your brush runs out of paint and you can see some of that canvas texture, it's fine. It just adds to that like light and airy quality that a feather has. So what I'm talking about is, you can see it even more with the white on the black but like you could see how there's like texture here. That's just the canvas. That's not some like crazy fancy painting technique. It's just the canvas poking through. The more paint you use, the less that will happen. So if you want to try to do that on purpose, I would say use very little paint. You can always add more. So when in doubt, start with very little paint and add more if you don't like what that looks like. Becky wants to paint wings. Okay. Wings are fun. Very similar to feather though. Okay, so we've got our feather. Let's see if I can kind of fix this up a little bit. Now that it's dry. I'm just kind of touching up my quill here. Okay, that's better. Now, you don't have to worry so much about bulking this line up yet because it's going to get bulked up when we add all of our little feather friends. But what you do want to do is these little like teeny tiny feathers. What is are the little individual parts of a feather also called a feather? Does anybody know? Is there a technical term for pieces of a feather? I have no idea. But generally speaking, there are these little teeny tiny like boop, boop, boops kind of right toward the base. I would say give yourself a little bit of room near your quill. There is, and Becky is Googling it. Okay, stay tuned. Becky will tell us what those little things are called. So I'm just going to kind of flick my brush and get a couple of those little barbs. Okay, barbs. Down here at the bottom. And then I'm gonna skip a little tiny bit of space before I start the rest of my feather. And it is going to go from small to big in the middle of the feather, and then it eventually gets small again. So keep that in mind when you start smaller. So I'm gonna go and maybe I'll do like this. And here's the thing, your feather barbs, that's what we're going with, are gonna go in all different directions. Like that's just how it happens in nature. So if you're like really trying to make them all look the same, that's cool, but you don't have to stress about that because they're all gonna look different anyway. And they can crisscross each other. So I'm going to keep going here. And there's just like a little wiggle to some of them. You know, make it kind of airy. I kind of like how this is happening with the black still being wet. It's pulling a lot of different gray shades in there, which I think is kind of cool. So I'm starting to get bigger. And I personally, if you've painted a tree with me, I prefer, I know I just did one in the opposite direction, but I prefer to start at the base here and pull out because that's how you can like flick and really get that feathery barbed look. So if you're starting out here and pulling in, that's fine, but it's going to be really heavy at the end, and we don't necessarily want that. So I'm flicking. I'm starting at the base and flicking. And it's getting bigger, they're getting wider. And see how like that one just kind of crossed over the one there and it's going in a completely different direction? That's cool, we like that. Now, as you get closer and closer to where your color is going to change, I want you to let it continue. Like flick your paintbrush into the lighter color, even if you can't see it. Even if it disappears into that other color, because we're going to need to pick those lines back up with our black. I'll show you what that means in a second. And you can leave it like this, or which I kind of like, or you can go back over that line and kind of give it a defined middle again, whichever you prefer. There's like a really bad glare here. Let's see. That didn't help. That's not where the light's coming from, Ileana. There we go. So I don't want you to stop. I want you to like kind of keep painting just a little bit into your lighter color because we need to be able to paint over that and have it overlap. I don't want there to be like a gap here. But you're losing some of your detail here because the detail happens when you can like really see them separate. So that'll happen in the black. I'm not sure if any of what I just said makes sense. So let me know in the comments if you're like, I got nothing, Ellie. But I am washing my brush. Now, because I'm using black and white, having the white on top of the black and having it give me some gray is totally fine. But when I put black on top of white that's still wet and it gives me some gray, it may not do it for me. My white is still wet. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to take a clean, dry bob. I'm just going to kind of spread this out a little bit so that it dries faster. If your white and gray is completely dry, you can ignore this step. This is just me trying to get my canvas to dry. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the same Spencer brush. I've cleaned and dried him off. I'm going to grab some black paint on there. And I'm going to try to remember or just kind of replan out where I want this feather to end. So I'm going to say he's going to end right kind of here, and give yourself a little extra room. By extra, I mean like go a little shorter than you think you want, because as we add the feather barbs, you'll want to have the ability to add more to the end of your feather to really kind of make it wispy. So I'm going to say it's going to end like right here. Maybe here. It doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to kind of pull it down like that. Just so I have like a frame of reference. Okay. So now, what I want you to do to start this guy off is we're going to start doing the exact same thing that we did before. We're going to start at the base and pull out. And now remember, this is a continuation of this guy. So we're still in the like big fluffy zone. I would say even through here, we could stay big and fluffy. And then like as we start to get closer here, we're going to want to get smaller and more compact. So you can add some here. Same way, you're going to start at the base and just kind of flick it. But once you've kind of gotten some that flesh out this area, I want you to go in and kind of pick these guys up where they left off. So I'm going to my line of where my black and white meet, and I'm just continuing where some of these feathery barbs left off. You see how it like kind of transitions? So we want to keep this line fairly clean, so I'm going to try to start these at like the same spot. Like that. And so now I'm going to keep building my feather. And now, like I said, they're all going in all sorts of different directions. But as you get more toward this part, we're going to want them to kind of start to go and converge in the same direction. So I'm going to keep having some of these guys here. And then as they move up, they're going to get smaller, but they're also going to start moving all in the same kind of general direction. So I like to do all one side like this first, just to kind of like lay out my direction. Do you guys hear my mom talking to Zoe? So I'm going to now pull on this side, and they're gonna follow the same line. Okay, now I want to probably go in and add more to that, but I just kind of wanted to lay out the shape and direction of my feathers so that I would know. So I'm going to go back in and maybe add some more here and there. And how full and fluffed out your feather is entirely up to you. You can have a really kind of like sparse feather. Like I would say this is fairly sparse, and that would be fine. Or you could have a really full, fluffy one. It's really up to you. If there's any areas that, if there's any areas, my dog sneezed in case anybody wants to know what I'm laughing at. If there's any areas that got maybe too heavy for you and you want to go back in with the background color, the opposing color, you absolutely can do that. I want to add some here. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. So, for example, I'm going to wash my brush off and say, I kind of lost some of the separation and texture here. So maybe I'll get a clean, dry brush. I'll get just a little bit of black paint on there, or whatever your background color is. And I'm just going to kind of like put a little bit of separation back in. This is not like a required thing, but if you feel like doing it, you absolutely can. And same up here, if you wanted to go back in and add some more white, maybe somewhere. It's going to turn gray, but that's okay. It's just like a little bit to lighten it up. And if you wanted to go back in and give yourself that defined middle line, which I'm also sure has a name, spine, I don't know, the spine of your feather, you can do that as well. Now on this guy, I actually went in and gave like the white spine a little bit of a black detail. If that's something that you enjoy. Stem. Thank you, Becky. Becky says it's the stem of the feather. If you want to give the stem of your feather, if you want to pull that black down. You can. Not a requirement. I kind of liked it the same way before. Or shaft. Okay, I'm going to stick with stem. But yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that feather. It looks good. If anybody is struggling with like where they line up, or did that part make sense? Here, I can't zoom in with YouTube because it's on my computer and not my phone, but if you can see better, like what I meant by that line, like all of those little feathery barbs kind of stopping at where the black turns to white and then the black picked back up. Does that make any sense? I think it does. I hope it does. Okay. Now, birds. I have a clean, dry Spencer, and we're going to kind of follow this line at the very end of our feather. The word feather escaped me. And we're going to do birds. Now, you could do a couple different things. You can, honestly, just go in and do like the way we always doodle birds when we're making art is the like really stretched out M. So you can just kind of do that. And that's a bird. That's definitely a bird. Now, I like to do that, and then I like to give it a little bit of a body. So I'll just go right in and I'll use my brush to kind of stamp a little body in there. And just that little, like I literally just I booped a body in there. That little detail made it more of a bird. Just a little bit more of a bird. Now, if you want to go even further, you can use the very tip of your tiniest brush and give them a little bit of a beak. It's just a little extra detail if you have the ability and bandwidth to do that. You can even give it like more of a tail if you wanted to. Just little tiny details there. But that's pretty much just how I do the birds. Now, you can maybe do some that have more of a swooped feather. A feather, wing, swooped wing. So I like to do them all different like shapes and such. They are all flying in the same direction though. But you can do their wings in all sorts of different shapes. So this guy, I just made his wings look a little different. You can also start with a booped body, so you can just boop a body right in there. And then swoop a wing out here. So like it's a side profile. And then you can give him like a little bit of a beak situation there. So right there is like a side bird. He's just a little boop with a side wing. You can make that wing bigger if you want, because these guys kind of had bigger wings. And a little tiny bit of a beak. So it's really small details that are not 100% necessary to make it look like a bird. And I like to do them all different sizes too, because their birds would be flying closer and farther away. So you could do this one. I only had room for 4. This one I might put more in here. Maybe I'll do like a little guy right here, kind of swooping. This is really where you can make it your own. You can put as many birds as you'd like. And you can press really lightly and do some really faint ones that are like flying far away in the background. And the smaller and like fainter ones have less and less detail, because you wouldn't be able to see all the detail that far away. So that's kind of fun, because you could just like doodle a little bird. Cool. Yeah, put as many birds as you want. So if you can see, they're all different shapes, sizes, levels of detail. They're all different. I mean, heck, if you have the room and you want to have like white birds here, you could do it. I mean, I just liked how this kind of ended it off and left it there, but make this your own. Now, I do highly recommend you sign your artwork. This is it, guys. We're done. You nailed it. I think the bottom corners are traditional. Doesn't really matter where you sign. I would use like the opposing color, but that's just me. So I'm going to sign down here. But that's all she wrote. So I want to see your artwork. I haven't really figured that out with the YouTube 112. I don't know if you can post pictures in the comments. I've never tried. If you can post pictures in the comments here, please do so. If not, you can still put them on my Twitter, because I still want to see them on my Twitter. It's at superinspired67 if you're happening to watch this and don't follow me on Twitter. I should probably put that somewhere on this page. The brush names make a ton more sense now that I've watched Criminal Minds. Yes, Spencer, my brush Spencer is named after Spencer Reid on Criminal Minds. So yeah, tag your pictures on Twitter, put them in the comments below this video. Do both if you can do both. That would be fantastic. I don't know. I guess we'll find out shortly if, well, there's a bunny outside. That's the definition of attention deficit. Anyway, thank you for joining me on YouTube for the first time, and let me know either here, like in the comments, or in Twitter, on Twitter, if you like it better. If you want me to stick with YouTube, or if you want me to go back to Twitter, or whatever, just let me know. And I love you guys, and I'll see you next week. Mwah.